Hello everybody and welcome to the GMS Magazine channel. This is the RPG Room, the podcast about role-playing games and the people who actually play it. This podcast is co-hosted by Sean Harris and Paco Garcia, and we cover all sorts of aspects of the world of role-playing games. From fair play to how to publish your book to the topic that we are covering today of IPs that we think should turn it and make it into role-playing games. If you're watching this in our YouTube channel, thank you very much indeed, and please leave us a comment. If you're listening, please leave a review in iTunes or wherever it is that you're listening to this podcast, because that helps immensely to our visibility and it is truly and genuinely appreciated. If you want to be part of this podcast, please let us know. We would love to have you around either for an interview or just a chat as mates. So please get in touch through our Facebook page or our Twitter accounts, and we would love to have you on board. And if you can, please help our Patreon campaign. For just a couple of dollars a month, you will be helping us sustain all the equipment and buy more games and basically get everything and keep everything going. Thank you so much for being there. And now here is Sean and me.
Oh, sweet. Hello there, listener. This is Sean Harris. I'm your host with GMS Magazine with Paco Garcia.
Hello, that's me. Hello.
And this time we're going to be talking about IPs, intellectual properties we want to see turned into role-playing games. So, Paco, you talked about you recently watched Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I did.
And like the first thing you posted about it is like, oh, this needs to be an RPG.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I just thought it was... Firstly, I loved the show. You know, I had seen the film because, you know, everybody did. I'm sorry, I know. And that's why I didn't watch the show afterward, because it was a bit... maybe I shouldn't waste my time if the whole thing is going to be like this. But then my friend John Bolt said, no, you have to watch it. With me and my kids have watched it like 20 times already. I love it. So you have to do it. Okay, fine. I'll have a go. And I absolutely loved it. Really, really enjoyed it. And then I watched, immediately after, I didn't wait a second, I watched The Legend of Korra. And I have to say that took me a little bit longer to get into it. But once I got into it, I am absolutely in love with it. The whole thing is so beautiful, so utterly and completely beautiful in every single way. And I want to see a role-playing game based on that. Is so good.
What is it do you think would be really important for a role-playing game based on Avatar: The Last Airbender? What do you think really needs to be in there?
Firstly, we need to see more Far East authors and people writing that game. That's for starters. We need to see more Japanese, more Vietnamese, more Malaysian artists creating the whole thing. That for me would be paramount. But also, one thing I enjoyed about both Avatar and Legend of Korra is that there is very little death. There's always the chance of learning from your mistakes, of improving as a person. And that, I thought it was really, really clever. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So yeah, and the setting is so rich and so different from standard high fantasy fiction. And it's not just because of like the pan-Asian aspect, but also like I don't want to call it a magic system because they very explicitly say that bending isn't magic. but the cosmology, the and the way like the different bending abilities work and things like that. So it's, I mean, yeah, it's part of the Pan Asian aspect because it's about chi and chakras and things like that. But it's, and also like, but there's also a rich spirituality there, and you know that it's so unlike uh, Christianized religion. I'm specifically saying Christianized. So I think it's really it has, and it's so there's so many possibilities to explore as well. Like for instance, like there's a like the very early history with the with you know with like the very first benders, at least the very first human benders, and then there's like you have like a you know you could even do something I don't want to say futuristic, but like contemporary, you know, to an extent. You know, like the events of the show or both shows, the events of both shows don't necessarily have to be the focus. So yeah, it's just there's so many possibilities and directions you can go in with that, and you know, it'd be kind of thrilling to see what somebody makes of it. You know, also mechanically, because it's like that'd be really really swell to do too.
Yes, I think the only thing that I missed in the show was a little bit more queer content.
Right. Yeah.
There was so many possibilities, you know, and I know that the very last episode, you know, Cora and her friend go into the spirit world, and it is very heavily hinted why they're doing it. But there was so much possibility for exploring queer content, you know, in a more open way.
Yeah.
That I thought that was a little bit. It's a bit of a shame that they've missed that opportunity with the show. But then, when was Avatar out? Was it 20 years ago already?
No. It started in 2005 and ended in 2008. And Legend of Korra, I want to say 2011 and wrapped up in 2014.
Okay, that's interesting because I thought Avatar was a lot older because of the television format. You know, it's still in 4:3 rather than 16:9. So I thought, okay, this must be late 90s.
It was on during I don't know why it's that format. Because what you call them? It was on Nickelodeon on a weekly basis.
Yes, just this. That's
So
bizarre.
I don't know why it's like what I don't know. You have to ask them.
Well, I did tweet and let them know that, you know, they need to let us have a role-playing game, but they haven't said anything, bastards. So
yeah,
anyways,
because they're trying to do like a live action thing on Netflix. That might be why.
oh, okay. Oh my God, I am actually both excited and really scared now.
Yeah.
Because that's I haven't. But the thing is, having seen the series, I don't need anything else. You know, don't risk fucking it up, please. Just don't. Why are you doing it? Oh my God, stop it! It's yeah, I don't want to see that. You know why? I just oh no.
It's because I think, you know, it's for me it's in tandem with the Disney live action remake problem, where the stories they created were perfectly suited to animation. And it's just, but flesh and blood actors, it just doesn't. It looks really hokey almost. It looks like kind of silly and not in a good way. Not silly. It looks fake or silly, and it just the tone just never gets right. It's like, and a case in point, and the strongest case in point I'll make here is the Lion King. It's like photorealistic lions that talk. Okay, but so much of what made that the original so great is because of the mastery of animation as a medium.
Yes.
So there you have it.
I agree. I think for me, what gets to me out of those movies, technically very accomplished as they may be. You know, the only one I have seen it's being Aladdin, and I have to say that technically, visually, it was absolutely superb. But what I kept thinking throughout the movie was, why aren't you giving me a new story? I mean, you are Disney, do you really need to remake this? Can you make something new, something else, even if it is within the same universe? But why are you redoing what you have already done? And the only thing new you give me is a song.
Mhm.
Why bother? I don't understand. I that is the thing. I don't understand.
It's such a very blatant, cynical cash grab. It's not funny.
True. I mean, the only redeeming feature that I can see in those films
Mhm.
is people frothing at the mouth at the cast. I love that.
Oh, you heard about the Black Ariel, huh?
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I just see just for that I'm thinking, okay, Disney, you are forgiving. That's fine. I'm seeing people frothing. How can dare you giving me a black mermaid? How dare you? It's a bit like, oh yeah, that was worth it. I will watch that film definitely. I didn't bother with The Lion King. I didn't bother with Mulan. I did bother with Aladdin, and I will bother with the Little Mermaid. Just to the sweet sound of racists being stupid. I should have playlisting Spotify with that on loop.
Ariel can't be black. She's a redhead.
Exactly, and I'm a mermaid. Mermaids. Well, when have you ever seen a black mermaid?
This is a Danish story. What about Danish
Eh,
representation? That's the other one that kind of made me just want to roll over giggling.
Yeah.
But let's not get too sidetracked. We'll be at this all day. We'll at this all day. So yeah, you said Avatar: The Last Airbender. One that's actually in development that I definitely wanted to see made an RPG, The Dark Crystal. They are making an RPG of The Dark Crystal. I'm so happy. It's like,
That I am not joking or exaggerating about this. Okay, people, you are perfectly entitled to not believe me, but I'm not kidding. I cried with happiness a little bit when I saw that news.
mhm.
I was so delighted and elated with the idea of having a Dark Crystal RPG. It's just amazing. And when I I told my friends, and a couple of them said, "Nah, I was never a fan of the Dark Crystal." It was like, why are we even friends? I mean, why am I letting you still breathe? You're waste of humanity. Come on. It's Dark Crystal. It's one of the most endearing and beautiful stories of the 80s. And Netflix done a fantastic job with the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a great job expanding the world without making it feel like claustrophobic.
Hmm.
Because this is something I noticed was a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of RPG settings, but this is what turned me off to a lot of RPGs, like when I was gaming earlier, where it's like there was so much lore and so much minutia and so much trivia that, like, you couldn't, there was no freedom to like define the setting for yourself at all. And the Dark Crystal is like, it's not like Westeros or something where it's like all the the whole map has been drawn, all the mysterious places have been discovered, and everything's been filled in and carved up, and there's no room to invent anything new or have any kind of mystery to it. And to me, it's sort of like, if I want that, I just make a realistic drama based on Earth. But yeah, it's just, I mean, I like, there's a, like we were talking about like a couple weeks ago, where it's like, also where it's like, again, it's not your standard historical fiction type of setting. It's clearly fantastical. It's not realistic in any way, and it's so different from the steady diet of Tolkien-esque fantasy. And I love that, and of course it's puppets. So,
And one of the things I liked about Dark Crystal is, especially in the series, that they exploited very well the massive potential for darkness
Yes.
that it has, even though, yes, it is a puppet thing, even though it's meant to be a children's show. But especially during the series, there were a few moments where I thought, okay, if I were now the age I was when I first saw this film, I would be terrified.
Right. And I think that's key to children's media or any kind of media that you gear toward children. There have to be moments, and this is what I like about 80s fantasy. 80s, maybe early 90s fantasy. It's like, it's clear that some of them were trying to traumatize the shit out of some kids.
Mm.
I and I think that element of fear or darkness or tragedy is necessary because I think kids know when adults are lying to them. And I think like that sense of, because I was kind of a morbid kid anyway. So I was sitting here like giggling at the Addams Family jokes, all right? So not the adult ones, but like, yeah, Wednesday and Pugsley literally trying to kill one another, like, hee hee hee. I thought it was funny.
It was, yeah, I agree.
Speaking of IPs, I want to turn it to RPGs. But it's like those really those old school fairy tales, like the really old ones that had all the blood and guts and sex in them, and not necessarily in those terms, but like, you have Red Riding Hood where the wolf eats Red Riding Hood. It's that element of danger or fear or something. It's like that I feel like nowadays a lot of children's media is missing that, and I think that gives not just children's media but just media in general, I guess. It's like there's a certain, I don't know, it just, but yeah, I agree with you in the sense of like that's definitely something that the Dark Crystal has in spades. Something that Jim Henson's creations have that hasn't been replicated since he passed away. Another one that I like, who's, I don't want to say similar to Jim Henson because it's not, like Don Bluth. I don't know if you remember him.
I do, yes. I remember
Okay,
Anastasia.
Right, like, okay, The Secret of Nim is about as kid friendly as he gets.
Mm-hmm.
And they're dealing with like horrific abuse of animals. They're dealing with death, murder. They're dealing with like
abandonment,
sickness, homes being destroyed. And the whole circle of life aspect with the great owl and all that. And Nicodemus is not exactly easy to look at, and he's a good guy. It's just, yeah, I like that aspect of the Dark Crystal. It's not, it's like, yeah, you have little names like Gelflings and Skeksis and whatnot, but it's like you're dealing with war, imperialism, experiment. It's human experimentation. I know they're Gelflings, but it's human experimentation.
Yes.
Genocide, and in a very frank way.
Absolutely. It holds no punches. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
as you said, they're dolphins, but come on, they're sentient creatures. I mean, they may speak weird, but they are sentient creatures. Let's make no mistake about this. I'm sure that Henson knew exactly what he was doing when he created that situation. And yeah, hello kids, this is reality now.
Yeah, and it's like, and there's like so many, like as with Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's so many different paths to explore in that setting, outside of the main story itself. Like, how do we get from the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance to the Dark Crystal that we know, that's the film? Like, what happened to the Gelflings in the meantime? Like, what happened? There's also like, what about the Emperor like, does he still? Is that the same emperor or is that a new one? It's and then it's like, okay, what happened in like when the Earthgex first came to Thra and whatnot, and it's like, how did the Skeksis and I mean, we know how the Skeksis and Mystics split up. Like, what was that like when it first happened? And it's so, and then it's sort of like with the themes of the show, it's not really good versus evil. It's about balance and having to accept both light and dark. And it's just and it's how do you work that into your games and stuff like that. So it's like it's so thematically rich and so and it's like, and it's so interesting because it's so different from what we see explored.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I am really seriously looking forward to that game. I think it's going to be very, very interesting if they do have a decent work. It is going to be a fantastic game, so I'm looking forward to that one. Okay.
Are you making bombs? That's I have to get that out there. Are you making bombs? I love that part. Oh yeah, she was making bombs.
Yeah.
She was making bombs.
Okay. What other things? What other IPs would you like to see turn into RPGs?
Well, there's She-Ra. I wrote down quite a few. She-Ra. I like the world of Akira. Like the world of Ghost in a Shell. Excuse me. I don't know if you remember this anime from the 80s called Wicked City.
No, I don't.
It's interesting.
Okay.
I will not vouch for the gender politics of that anime.
Okay.
It's rather entertaining to me. But I'm just saying, like, if you go look at it, then it's like, I can't believe Sean wrecked this. This is the most unwoke thing ever.
Okay, Wicked City.
I gave you fair warning.
Okay.
Let's see. The Matrix was one I put down. It's like there have been approximations. Like there's been Shadowrun, there's been Cyberpunk, but like a game based on the Matrix, haven't seen that. Okay, here's another one. This is one I actually tried to do once. A game based on the Neverending Story book.
Oh yes, definitely. We should see that. That would be brilliant. I read that book 5 times when I was a kid.
I've been trying to look. It's like I don't know what happened to my copy of the book, but I want it back, and I'm looking for a new one.
I need to get another copy of that book and reread it because I have so many fond memories of reading that book.
Oh yeah,
it was amazing despite the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the film is actually okay. Like again, the film set out to traumatize the shit out of some kids.
Yeah.
The film shows a house drowned in a swamp. It's like, and of course, kids, you don't read the thing at the fine print at the end of the film where it says no animals were harmed in the making of this film. I can't say. And then you have this wolf creature trying to rip Atreyu limb from limb. There's the Nothing, which apparently is so terrifying they can't even film it. Yeah, and then you have suicidal rock giants. Like, wow, that movie is heavy. Heavy.
Yeah.
And you were saying?
But I think, I mean, the problem with the film is that it tried to condense the book in just a couple of hours, and that was completely impossible.
Mm-hmm.
There was way too much, and it was a bit too much of a departure from the book. Even as a child, I could see the parallelisms with self-discovery, of wanting to find a higher goal that will help you become a better person
Hmm.
as a human being.
Right.
I enjoyed that so much. I could identify myself as a child
Hmm.
with the characters, with the struggle, with the wanting to survive
Hmm.
and find this purpose to live and create
Right.
a new world that would be better for me.
Hmm.
I was able to relate to that.
Yeah.
With the film, I didn't really get anywhere near that feelings. It was a bit more. It was too much of an 80s action movie for
Right.
kids.
Yeah. The things that like, which I'm gonna sound so bad. The deeply traumatizing parts, yes, love those. The hokey sort of clearly studio meddling parts
Mm,
where it's like, okay, we gotta make this confrontation with the bullies funny, or um, we have to like they kind of have to dumb down the message a little bit, and the book was so much more complicated than the film is allowed to be, um, because like part of the thing with the book in the book is that it's we're dealing with Bastian's strained relationship with his father as a result of the death of his mother, and like, and so there's a lot. So the parts in the movie that are about death and despair and the like, those feel true to the book even though they're not in the book. Like the
mm,
part with Artax drowning, I don't remember that being in the book, but yeah, the part with the when Atreyu is trying to find the Southern Oracle or whatever, it's like, yes, those sphinxes are creepy because they have woman heads and breasts and weird bird feet, but like when I read that part in the book, it was a lot more unsettling.
mm,
Um, and I mean, I guess to a great extent, the unsettling bit about that is kind of, I don't want to say impossible to film, but it won't have the same impact if you try to film it, because what would they? How would you even film that?
It would be
um,
very difficult.
how would you even film that? But the whole be confident aspect, nah, not feeling that. But the setting itself is like the weirdness about, like, the sheer weirdness of the setting. Like, you remember when they're when all those people, they're going to the ivory tower or whatever, and the to see the childlike empress, and like the crowd of like people, and they're
Mhm.
all like these weird looking people. Like, they're these people with like massive heads, like these huge massive heads on like teeny tiny bodies. There are uh there's that guy, that councilman guy, that, like, the black man who's some kind of elf. I don't know what he is, but he's clearly not human. There's the It's like you just see the assembled crowd, and you don't even get to know their names really. You just see them there, and it's like all kinds of weirdness. It's not like your typical D&D rigid racist kind of situation. It's like, no, these are like they're all kind of singular. They're all their own interesting thing. So having something like that replicated in a never-ending story RPG would be really cool. So it's like you don't get to pick from a select group of races. It's more like, okay, what kind of character are you, and if you want to be, and how do you define yourself in that? How do you define yourself when you don't have, like, okay, you're this kind of creature, so you get a bonus and there's a penalty in that. You have these you have these special gifts. So it's just like what would it mean to be able to define that with everything? Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, and the never ending story would be like really really fantastic.
Definitely.
Be a fantastic RPG setting.
Definitely. I agree. I think there was in the making a video game many years ago. I was in Viewpoint at the time, so we're talking in 1999 and 2000. There was a German company that was trying to make a video game based on the Neverending Story, and at the time they wanted to make an MMO, and they just couldn't cope. They folded because the technology wasn't there to make an MMO that could host the whole universe of the Neverending Story. And after that, that's it. I think the Neverending Stories died. I can't remember when it was the last time that anybody mentioned it outside small circle of people. But I haven't seen a series. I haven't seen anybody wanting to make an RPG or even a remake of the film. Nobody ever bothered with it. I wonder if there is anything to do with the Michael Ende estates that it's not allowing it or something. I don't know, but it's bizarre. It is very bizarre.
Yeah, because it's one of those settings. Again, it's one of those settings where it's like it can literally be anything, and that really suits a role-playing game because a role-playing game can be anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it had to be one of those. Imagining it had to be one of those super meta story games because Fantastica or Fantasia is a realm built of stories. So you're not going to have your standard, strength, dex, con, intelligence, blah blah blah. You're not going to have that. It's going to be. I think it had to be a lot more meta, a lot more. I don't want to say not mechanical, but yeah, a lot more story game-ish than flat out, simulationist RPG.
Oh, definitely. I don't think you could make it into a D&D type of game. I think that would be a tremendous mistake.
Yeah.
When I was one of the APs that I was thinking about this earlier, when I was a child, there was a series. I think it was a German series called Into the Labyrinth. And at the time, we used to play outside in the street. And the series, it was very cool. It was a kids series in which a group of, I think it was either 3 or 4 children, can't remember. They were sent into a labyrinth, and every time they went into the labyrinth, they were sent into the past to a historical period. Now, that they were caught in a fight between a witch and a warlock who were fighting for control of a substance called the nidus.
Okay.
So they had to go to different periods of history, and the series used that to teach you about history. So, at some point you would go into the French Revolution, or they would go to Egypt, or they may go to, I don't know, New York, early 20th century, or what have you. And it was kind of, think about Stargate, but with going back into periods of history and children instead of going into space, and a magical fight for some, mystical material rather than the Goa'uld wanting to control everything. But I was thinking, how cool would it be to actually get a game like that it is actually based on real history, and that the whole base is about kids taking responsibility and saving the world in a meaningful manner, because adults are being assholes about something that they don't really know how to control.
Right. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I thought, yeah, that series. It's a shame. Again, is another thing that it gets lost in the 80s, and you think, but but I'm sure it's aged really badly, but I bet it was great. It was very good. The concept is brilliant sound.
Yeah. I have a couple of IPs here that would be cool to adapt to RPGs. Um, the one is Stephen King's The Dark Tower, the
Okay.
whole 7 novel opus, and Frank Herbert's Dune, which I have not read, but everything I hear about it says like, why isn't this an RPG yet? Because if I'm going to talk about The Dark Tower, because I definitely read that. It's kind of hard to summarize The Dark Tower. It's basically, it's basically a quest from point A to point B with a, like, imagine like point A on one side, point B on the other, and it's like this, instead of a straight line, it's like all these squigglies and loops and twirls and all this crap, and then you get to point B. But what I love about The Dark Tower is, again, like we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, it's like it's truly bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
It like there, it's like you travel through multiple worlds. It's sort of like, and then it kind of combines in this very very interesting way elements of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. So there's like mystical stuff and magical stuff happening. That's like the fantasy aspect, and then there's especially that Arthurian legend element that's sort of in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's the sci-fi aspect where like you're dealing with some ultra high-tech stuff that's almost indistinguishable from magic, like sentient monorail trains that travel at supersonic speeds. Um, there's, and then there's like AI, there's super advanced AI. There's uh, what else? Like there's like psychic powers enhanced through technology. So there's like this super ultra tech stuff going on alongside the mystical stuff, and of course there's the horror because there are actual demons in it. Um, and and it combines it in this very interesting way. Um, the I mean, yes, yes, it's worth reading the damn books. The movie was a disappointment, even though I
Mm.
loved Idris Elba as Roland. Um, he's got the right presence for it. It's like, wow, he was so well cast, but the movie didn't do him justice.
Well, to be honest, I think that Idris Elba is as close to perfection as a person can get. I think he's absolutely magnificent.
And he's like Idris Elba is like, I don't know if you haven't read the books. It's like, oh well, Stephen King's always going over about Roland's blue eyes. Oh, shut the fuck up. But I'm sorry to say it like that, but like that is not the most incredible feature of him. It's his sort of, he's not a young man. We don't know how old Roland is, but he ain't a young man. This is not Roland Deschain is not Harry Potter. Roland Deschain is not a YA protagonist.
Hmm.
He's he's a grown ass man who's been through this, and he's kind of tired of it, and he's a deeply flawed hero in a very interesting way. But not to like hammer on about him. It's like, yeah, Idris Elba was well cast, but the movie was not well done.
No, I haven't read the novels, I have to say. I think I started one many years ago, and it didn't do anything for me, so I didn't bother with it. I didn't continue. But I watched the film, and I left the theater upset.
Yeah.
I was a bit, come on, you're taking the piss. What the hell was this? It was bad at every single turn. It was
Yeah.
horrific.
And yeah, and also what I really like about it, it's when you read the books, you'll understand when I say this. It's fantasy for adults. And I don't mean this in the Game of Thrones way, where it's just gratuitous sex and violence. Even more so than source material. It's like it's morally complex. It's psychological in a very deep way, where it's like it's morally complex. It's deeply psychological. There are no simple answers because, like on the one hand, yeah, the heroes are heroes, but at the same time, it's like some of them do terrible shit. Roland does some terrible shit in these books. And he's not always a nice person to his friends. And and his friends don't always come to good ends as a result of knowing him. And I think there's a distinct lack of that. Where, okay, what are you willing to do to fulfill literally the quest of your life? Like, who or what are you willing to sacrifice? Not just to get what you want in the sense of money or status or whatever. Like if you were on a quest to find the answers you've always sought in life, what are you willing to give up to get those answers? Or what are you willing to give up to know what lies beyond? Like what are you willing to sacrifice, or who are you willing to sacrifice in order to get to that? And there's even and even in the sense of there is an ultimate bad guy in the novels, but in the course of fighting him, what are you willing to do to defeat him? And what does that do to you as a person? For instance, and then this is something I don't want to say I noticed, but how in action movies they just kill bad guys left and right, and nobody has to go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
The Dark Tower kind of. I mean, there's elements of that because you need some of that excitement, but there's when you make a big decision that affects the lives of other people, okay, I'm going to betray my best friend. That does something to you. Even if you try to, no matter how you try to justify or whatever, that does something to you. And we kind of see that. And I think with the Dark Tower, I like the setting elements. I love those things. But I also like that there's no, and also because it deals very frankly with things addiction and racism and sexism to a lesser extent. I mean, Stephen King tried, but he's still a cisgender heterosexual white American man. And Susanna Dean is probably one of the best characters he's ever written. A mentally ill, disabled Black woman who, and it's just, and she's not anybody's magical Negro. Stephen King had a big problem with that. But yeah, as a setting, it's just so, with all the settings we talked about so far, it's so thematically rich and so interesting, and there's so many different directions you can take it in that, and it's because it's suggested, it's there are many, many worlds in that world. So who's to say what another quest would look like? So that would be very fascinating to me. And Frank Herbert's Dune, just because I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
I haven't seen it. If that role-playing game exists, I haven't seen it. So please. I mean, the closest I've seen come to that is Fading Suns.
Well, no, Modifius is about to release a Dune game. And I know that Andrew Peregrine's been working on it, so I hope it is in safe hands.
Yeah, so do I.
But yeah, I think we are a few weeks away from seeing the Dune game out and about.
Okay.
So that would be very good. How talking about I remember when you mentioned The Matrix. something a series that should have its own role-playing game as well is Sense8.
Mm.
I thought, the party element of it, as in having a party of people
Right.
that join and merge together.
Mm.
The idea that you can borrow abilities, experiences, emotions, feelings from one to the other to create a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, as a concept, the idea of having everybody around the table,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily 8 people, but 8 characters, always 8 characters, and you have interchangeable skills.
Mm-hmm.
That if you are using them with one of your characters, then you cannot be using it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you are in completely different locations. So if you need it,
Mm-hmm.
then you could get into trouble
Mm-hmm.
because you're lending that ability to another player that it's going to need it at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
you have this massive cabal that's looking to destroy you just because they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand you. I thought that could make for a really interesting gaming experience.
Yeah, because it kind of blows out of the water the idea of like my character and just my character. It's,
Correct.
because it's everybody's characters almost.
Yes.
If you share kind of, because the connection is so deep and intimate that like where does one person end and another begin, and that whole thing can be kind of a mind bender if you really want to take it there. And then there's the inherent queerness of the idea, I think, too, because the way I remember about Sense8 when I wasn't annoyed by some of the weirdness with the black characters. The connection is it's mental and emotional. So then you have like, okay, so how do you experience gender then? You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
men could inhabit women, women can inhabit men. And then there's like people, and then let alone just so it's like, so how does so you can't really define self as purely physical, or can you? And it's like and it's this weird kind of fluidity, I guess. This idea of a relatively fluid self that's connected with other selves. It's just, I don't know. It's like it can go, like you said, it can go in some really fascinating direction.
It would be a very difficult game to GM, I reckon, because one of the things about the series that I thought was truly masterful was the editing. The fact that the story takes place in completely different locations all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they managed to edit it.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole thing is cohesive, the whole thing is congruent.
Mm-hmm.
And even though things are happening in different places, you can still share your experiences.
Right.
I don't know how that could be made around the table because, splitting the party seems to be such a stigmatic thing, that, oh no,
Yeah.
never split the party, which is a bit, why not? I mean, if you split the party and everything collapses, then maybe the adventure wasn't all that well designed. Then
Right.
there's
Yeah.
an issue there.
Yeah. I think mechanically it would probably need some very strong scene framing mechanics that are intuitive. Because the way I remember it, it's like a scene can focus on a character in a specific location. Like there's so yeah, it's like, so instead of playing like task to task and moment to moment, it'll be like a whole scene that has to take place focused on one character. But each player can take over, and I put this in quotes, the character at certain points when certain skills might come in handy. So if you have let's say we have a character who's a martial artist, we have a master thief character, and we have a what do you call it? we have a burglar, a martial artist, and let's say a mark like an assassin or something. It's like depending on the skill set or whatever. It's like the players can take turns being that character in that scene. So that just I don't know. I don't know how I'd have to sit down and think about it, but it's like I think it can be done. It just has to. I think new players will probably grasp it a lot easier than people who have certain ingrained role-playing habits.
Probably.
Yeah.
I reckon so. The only problem that I could foresee with a game like Sense8 is if you do something with a skill for your character that another player around the table thought it was inappropriate and their character wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
That could lead to conflict. But then that would be the reality in brackets reality if the Sense8 tribe actually existed.
Mm-hmm.
How would you know that somebody is going to do something that it's correct with your abilities? At the end of the day, you are linked.
Yeah, you're linked, but like it's not mind control. Like
No.
I think you have to willingly. It's like I think if I recall, I don't know if they were explicit about borrowing each other's. Like if they were explicit about needing permission or not, but to me it seemed that like the person whose body it is needed to a certain degree, a certain permission granted has to be.
Yeah,
like,
there were consent issues there, definitely.
Yeah, it's sort of like with remote keyboard or something like with like remote like when you like ask a tech support to help you with your computer and they say, hey, I need your permission to access your computer so I can fiddle around with this, that, and the third, and you say yes. And well, I don't say yes because I know they're trying to put a virus on there, but I'm just like and you have to say yes, and then they can go in and fiddle amongst it and do all kind of stuff like that, where it's like, okay, I have a skill that can help in this situation. Like, can I take over for a while? And they can say yes or no, whatever. And of course, maybe like I said, it has to be some really strong scene framing mechanics and some very clear standards of what is and isn't acceptable in the game. But but I think I can see it working. Like, my main concern would be like weird, like when it comes to like consent issues, it'd be like people who think it would be funny to put characters in all kind of weird sexual situations and like violate consent that way. And I'm like, yeah, no, we're not gonna do that.
No, I think that would be. It's the only thing about the game that I could see potentially problematic with assholes.
Yeah, but then you resolve that on not gaming with assholes.
Yeah, or kicking them out.
Yeah, or
kicking them out.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, Sense8, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I guess for my last one, all right, since we mentioned The Matrix, another favorite film of mine that I love to pieces, even though, again, the director is very problematic. The very problematic director of this movie went on to direct Gods of Egypt. So you understand what I mean when I say problematic.
Oof, okay.
Dark City. Dark City and The Matrix came about roughly at the same time. I think Dark City came out a little bit earlier.
Okay.
It is basically, I don't want to give it away in case you haven't seen it, because there's a major spoiler involved here. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna say, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and cut the podcast off right now because I'm going to talk about some major spoilers in the film. And yes, it does affect the viewing experience because once you know the spoiler, watching the film is a completely different experience. So once again, for Dark City, year 1998, the film Dark City, This is a huge, flashing, massive spoiler alert. Okay, so Dark City takes place in this unnamed city that where it's always night, and at midnight, and I'll put that in quotes, midnight, the city shuts down, everybody goes to sleep, and things change. Like buildings crop up and move around, people are rearranged into different lives, and they're given new memories. And it turns out, to explain this, basically an ancient yet dying race of aliens who have the power to manipulate physical reality through will alone. And they share this hive mind, so they're all dying. And they're trying to find a way to survive. And they think the secret lies in human beings. So basically, they kidnap human beings and bring them to these like these little petri dishes of like to these controlled environments. That's like just a big city where they live, and they go around doing things, and it's like, and they muck around with their memories and in their like circumstances all the time, just trying to find the secret of the human soul, the secret of like human individuality, and the like, so they could, evolve and survive. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it's dark is because the creatures which inhabit the bodies of dead people, and where there's a reason why everything is the way it is. It's because like, okay, we inhabit the bodies of dead people. Like I said, the lore is so, you have to watch the film to get it. But like they inhabit the bodies of dead people, and they're like, and they have a phobia of water. Mm-hmm. Like they was like, if you like the safest place to be is like in a swimming pool. And it's nighttime because like light hurts them or harms them in some way. Sunlight does that to them. But the whole idea is that like they had this like petri dish of humanity that they were experimenting on for who knows how long. And we don't know where they picked these people up. We don't know how. It's like, and the city itself, the design of the city itself is really fascinating because it's like so anachronistic, because you have contemporary things next to things from different decades, different centuries or whatever, and it's just all kind of mashed together. It's like an alien's impression of what humans live like. I mean, it's a very good impression, but it's like, it's a good impression. It will fool anybody who didn't know any better. But to a human, it's like there's something off about this. It's just not right. And the thing is, like there are certain people who, for whatever reason, they don't get their memories jammed. They don't get like what the whole thing and the whole events of the film kicked off because in the middle of when they were changing things around, one dude woke up and like broke the syringe that was like that scrambled the memories. It lived purely by chance. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like one of the things, like one of the themes of the film, where it's like, a lot about life. It's like you can't control a lot of this stuff. It's just evolution or whatever, and sometimes it's just chance. Or the thing that makes people, it's like, and then one person like, and then that the protagonist of the film gains the ability to has adapted to have the ability of the aliens to manipulate things with his mind. It's like, yeah, it's so it's got that sci-fi element with the like I always love the mystical woo stuff. I love that. It's like give it to me. So mystical powers like psychic powers and all that shit, love it. So he can do things like telepathically do this or like what that not nearly as powerful as like the aliens themselves, but like he has it when no other human has demonstrated that ability before. And I'm thinking, you know what? It's like, what if that's not the only experiment going on? Because, you know, if you're a scientist and you want to know, you know, you have to do more than one experiment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like there might have been like several or dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of these things throughout the galaxy universe or whatever. And that's both interesting, that's both fascinating and terrifying. So it'd be interesting to have that like to have that like more to be able to explore that in a role playing context because it's like everything else is so rich. It's sort of like there's so many ways you can tell a story in a setting like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have to watch that film. I'm sure I've seen it because being 90s and fantasy science fiction, I'm sure I've taken a look at it, but I cannot for the life of me remember it. So I'm gonna have to take a look at it and see if I can find it someplace.
I know I have it on DVD. The guy who did that is the same guy who did The Crow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So
we
got that very dark kind of gothic aspect, gothic kind of aesthetic, which I love to pieces. Love it. But
well, I will try and find it. There must be somewhere. So I'll try and find it. But anyway, we've been at it for an hour now. So what I would like to know is what the listeners think and what IPs have we left out? Because I'm sure we've missed an awful lot of things. Oh, and by the way, listeners, if you say Harry Potter, I'm going to tell you to fuck off. So don't say Harry Potter. No, we don't want to see a Harry Potter role-playing game. Fuck it. Fuck that shit. No, thank you. No, never. No, 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 no. No Harry fucking Potter, no. Bad. Bad listener.
I'm going to be a bad guy and say no Harry Potter, no Hunger Games, no Divergent, and no goddamn Twilight.
Oh my god, no, I've been to Twilight. I would just burn for the first time in my fucking life, I would burn a book.
Wow.
Oh my god! I mean, listeners, you cannot see my face, but Sean can see my face, and Sean, you can see that I am being serious about this. I mean, no, Twilight is a fucking abomination.
He really wants to do that. Now, True Blood, I'd love to see that be an RPG. True Blood, yes. Twilight, hell no.
No. Oh! I would be upset.
It'd be kind of fun. True Blood was kind of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. But my God, sparkly vampires, no. Oh,
the sparkly Mormon vampires. I'm not even going to get into the werewolves because that's just. I'm sorry, the Quileute, who are actually a real people. You're gonna take a. So you're gonna just turn the Native Americans into animals, huh? And not even in a way that's based on their own
culture and tradition,
culture or whatever. Right? It's like it's in this weird, noble savage.
I hate that. Oh, I hate that concept so much. That archetype, that stereotype, that fucking awful trope is so horrific. Mm-hmm. Oh, anyway, yeah. Not to those things, listeners. So anything else but that, let us know what you would like to see turn into a role-playing game, because that would be amazing.
Yeah. So let us know what else you'd like to see that's not those last few things that we talked about not wanting to see.
Right. Oh, no Chronicles of Narnia either. Okay, don't go there.
Oh my God. No Chronicle of Narnia, no Harry Potter. We have a whole bunch of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings stuff we don't need anymore.
No.
So let's just let's think new, let's think fresh, let's think underappreciated.
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Okay, listeners, thank you. Seriously, let us know what you think. And hopefully we'll talk to you very soon.
Yeah. And this is Sean Harris.
And this is Paco Garcia.
All right. Talk to you next week.